Okay guys, we're back with intermediate functions part 2. Let's start looking at some other functions that will help us do some data lookups like VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, XLOOKUP, and then some other functions like index and match in order to get you guys accustomed and ready to do some data analysis. So let's just get into it and get over to that. So as you guys know, in the first video, we went over the functions all the way up to some product. Today we're going to be going from VLOOKUP all the way to the today and now function and some stuff in between. So let's strap in, let's get really focused, and let's get after it. Okay, so let's hop over to the Excel sheet, guys. I'm going to pull down this presentation and let's open up the workbook and let's get to learning today. Who's feeling excited to learn a little bit about VLOOKUP today? VLOOKUP is a very crucial function that I will replace today for you guys if you guys have used it before. So today, let's look at the different functions that we have inside of Excel. So let's first start with the VLOOKUP function. It's a very popular function and a lot of people like to use it, right? It's a function that allows us to look up a value in a certain column and then return a corresponding value in another column. So I'm going to shorten this up a bit. That way we can see everything and then we're able to do it. So again, I just have some of these functions as a formula function here so you guys can see, but let's get into it. Okay, I'm going to clear these out. Let's do it. So let's look at VLOOKUP and what it can do. So let's say we have a row of column of names and we have their grades, right? And we know Matt's not doing too well, unfortunately, in this class. But let's take a look to see if we're able to create a function that will put this value in a corresponding cell, right? So we want to know Matt's grade and we want to know Samuel's grade. Now we can either look at this table and decide that, you know, I don't want to write a function. I just want to see Matt there, Samuel good, right? But I'm going to show you in a minute why this might not work and probably will not work for most of your functions. So let's do VLOOKUP. Again, VLOOKUP is the name of the function. So lookup value. So what are we trying to look up? We're trying to look up the value Matt, correct? Now the table array, it is very important that in VLOOKUP, your lookup array is left. So it will be in column B. It cannot be in column C if you're trying to look for something in column B or column A. So we want to just keep that into account. So our table array will always start with the lookup value as the first column, right? So Matt is in the first column here. That's our table array. The next argument is going to be the column number index. So if you are familiar with computers, you might think index starting at 0, but just think of it, Excel always starts its index at 1. So the column index will not be 1 because that's the lookup table array. It will be the second column. So we're going to click 2. We're always going to do a false unless you want to use an approximate match, but I don't recommend this, or you can just do 0 and then close that out. So we're going to click enter, and we got Matt as having an F. There we go. I'm going to pull it down even though it's already there, and that's Samuel. But let's say we switch this to GoDig. Now we get GoDig's updated grade. I'm going to reverse that out, and let's move on to a little bit more of a complicated set of data, right? Like that's pretty easy. You can look and kind of figure that out. But let's say our VLOOKUP data looks like this with a ton of names and it is a mess to try to find, right? So what we want to do is the same thing. And actually, if you would like, why don't you try to write this formula yourself and come back and let me know if you got it. Okay, so let's take a look at the name, right? The name of the person, and we want to look it up for their aggregate total order. So we want to see how much did each of these people spend. Looks like they're spending a good amount of money, right? We want to know. So let's do VLOOKUP. We're going to do, again, the lookup value, comma, the table array. The table array, again, will always start with the leftmost column. So in this case, our names are actually not in the leftmost column, but in this case, we're only looking for the aggregate orders. And I'm doing this on purpose because I'm going to show you another function that will do it even if the lookup array is on the left-hand side or on the right-hand side, and it doesn't matter. So let's just do this here. Remember, it always has to start on the first column. Always has to be the lookup array column. If I put the A in there, it'll cause an error. So let's do this. We know that it's going to be in the second column, right? Second column, and we're going to do a false lookup. So let's do that. Oh, Isaiah Frank, 38,000, and let's lock this, even though it's not going to really matter since we're pulling down, but let's just lock this just for good practice. And we know that we want to look up the rest of these names. So all we got to do is double click or drag down and you get those there. Let's do a spot check real quick to make sure our logic works. And Flossie, 91,000. Flossie, 91,000. We're good to go. Okay, so let's look up H. Let's look at H lookup. Now, rarely you'll get data in this type of format, but let's take a look and see, and maybe we have some unstructured data and we need to do an H lookup on something, right? So let's do the same thing that we did for VLOOKUP, but in this H lookup function. It's a horizontal lookup. It's the exact same function. All we need to do is flip it. So I'll show you how to do that. So we want to look up the shoes and all of the revenue for the shoes, right? So we have the total revenue here and we have the different departments over here, right? So we're going to go H lookup. Our lookup value, again, is going to be the shoes. Our table array will now be this entire table. And again, this works similarly to VLOOKUP. You want your H lookup row in this case to be on top of everything else. So you can only really look down, right? And we're going to do a comma. And we're going to do the row index number is going to be 2 since we're going 1, 2. And we're going to do a 0 and we're going to close this out. And it should give us the revenue for the shoes, right? So that works well. But I found a more powerful function, and I didn't find it actually, I'm lying. There exists a more powerful function, and it's called XLOOKUP. This lookup function is incredible. So you can use XLOOKUP to replace VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP, and I'll show you exactly why. So let's say we have this data, correct? And we have this data in the XLOOKUP example. And let's say we have something, a model that does a lookup array for specific customers that we want to look up. Okay, so let's say we want to do a VLOOKUP for this. Let's say we want to find the person associated with this address in this, right? In this column. So we want to find the person's name that's associated with address 238 Main Street. Now let's look up at our data and we realize that in column E, the address is actually on the name is actually on the left-hand side of the address. So this is a problem inside of VLOOKUP, right? Because we would have to move this address like this and put it in front of there. And moving around data sometimes is not the best thing to do. We want something that's flexible because if we build models or we're building something that's like a little application for a lookup application, we don't have to want to juggle around new data that comes in, right? So what we want to do is we want to write an XLOOKUP function. XLOOKUP, very easy, and it actually allows for handling errors. So I'm going to take you through a VLOOKUP and show you how it doesn't work. So let's do this just so you can see. So we want to look up the address. We want to look up the address, right? And find the person that's associated with the address. So let's just select this table array, right? And let's just try it. We know that it's in column 1. And I get an error, right? I don't know if you guys can hear the thunder going on because this XLOOKUP function is going to give you some thunder. So this doesn't work. So in order to keep the data in the structure as it is, we're going to do an XLOOKUP function. We're going to find, again, the lookup value. Now, we're going to be doing the lookup array, right? We're going to find the lookup array. So what is a lookup array? The lookup array is where we want to find our value. And we know the address is in column E. We're looking up the address. This is our lookup array. Now, instead of doing a column index number, we're going to have a return array. So we know that our name is going to be found in the return array. We're trying to look for the corresponding name based on that address. Now, there are, you can close out this function and leave it as is, but I highly recommend doing the next two things, obviously, so that you're able to get the most out of the function. So let's say we want to have a value if it's not found. So a VLOOKUP, you would have to put inside of an if error function. And in order to do that, you have to nest that function in there. This is clean and nice because if there's an error or if it's not found, I can return something like is not found, right? Or if I don't want anything, I can just skip that argument by putting another comma, and then I can do 0 is exact match. But I'm going to change this so that we can see not found, so that it can highlight in our data analysis if something is not found. But we know that this is Michelle Stoneman. But let's say I just accidentally fat finger this and type in 2830 Main Street, right? Fully out. We're going to get a not found instead of the ugly error that you'll get inside of VLOOKUP. And you can even do something like conditional formatting here, something we'll go over in another lesson. But if you know that, it's super helpful. So that is XLOOKUP, the best lookup function in Excel, at least my favorite. Okay, guys, let's move on to index and match. Index and match, another powerful lookup function, but only powerful if you combine them together. So let's say we have years here, right? And we have some costs that we want to take a look at. We have our variable costs, we have our fixed costs, we have some property damage, and now we have some taxes, right? So we want to know in year one, what was the variable costs? Now, this might seem like a very silly exercise. You can just say, well, you can do a VLOOKUP, you can do an XLOOKUP, but let's say we want to be specific to year one, right? Like we just want to know year one or year two, and I'm doing this so I can show you how to combine index and match together, because index and match on their own are not that useful of functions, but when you combine them together, they're very useful. So let's do index. So I'm going to clear this out again so you don't know the answer. We're going to do index, right? We're going to have our array. This is going to be our array. It's going to ask us for our row number. So we want to look for row number 2 because it starts at row number 1. So we want to find our variable costs. And the column number, it's going to be column number 2 because it's year 1, right? So we're going to click enter and we get $69. Not that useful, kind of confusing. People would probably be like, why'd you do it this way? Do it another way. But again, I'm going to show you guys why you guys need to combine these formulas together. Now let's look at match. Okay, so match is going to be something very similar, but it's going to return us a number. So we want to find where in this lookup array taxes is at, right? So we want to find taxes in this lookup array, right? And again, we're going to do 0 as a match type or false, so we get an exact match. We're going to close this out, and we're going to get 4. Not really helpful, right? Doesn't really make much sense, but why would you use either of these functions? Now, index will provide you at the value of a lookup based on 2 numbers. It's going to be the row index and then the column index inside of the index function. So let's quickly do the index function and look at the arguments or parameters that are in this function, right? Let's zoom in a bit. So I'm going to come out. And let's do index. Now, remember in Excel, because it's a dynamic program, you can feed other functions as their parameters / arguments. So we know that in the index function, you're going to have an array, you're going to have a row number, and you're going to have a column number. So if I combine the index with the match function, I can actually pinpoint exactly where I'm looking for in a table. So like I said before, these functions on their own, not really helpful, but they are when you combine them. So let's say we have a table of data as such. We have these different headers, and we have these different line items, right? And we want to know which consultant are we going to choose for this little matrix here. So we want to look at private funds that are a public firm. So what we're going to do is we're going to do equals index. In that index function, we're going to provide it an array, right? We're going to provide this array. We're going to click F4 to lock that up. Now, instead of feeding it a row number, so a row number here and then a column number here, what we're going to do is we're actually going to feed it a match function. So the match function, we're going to look for, first for the row. So we're going to look at the public firm here. We're going to do this. And we know our lookup array is going to be this first column, right, of the table, right? So let's lock that into place too. And we're going to do a 0. Now this is going to provide index a number. It's going to provide index a number. So it'll say, okay, public firm, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to be position number 5, right? Now we need to provide it a column number, because not only do we need to provide position number 5, we need to know what column is it in. And we know private funds is in column number 2. But we're not just going to write 2 because it's not dynamic. So we're going to do another match function, match. Instead, we're going to look at private funds. And now we're going to look across this first row headers, right? We're going to look there because we know that's where the firm type is. Let's lock this into place. F4. Again, the match type will be 0. Click enter. Accept this correction. Jeremy Holding is going to be that person. So let's say we want to look, instead of private funds, let's say we want to look at crypto funds, right? We want to look at crypto. Bitcoin is skyrocketing right now. So we want to look who's going to be our consultant for public firms, and it should be Jack Tunist. Awesome. And now you can do, you can look up any of these values. I'm going to undo this out. Anyways, guys, that is the index and match function. Let's move on to some string functions and get through these pretty quickly, and we can wrap up for today. Okay, guys, so let's look at some string functions. Let's say we want to find the length of a specific cell in terms of amount of characters. We're going to be using the len function, the len function. We just feed it the cell that we want to find. Let's say we want to use the right function to get the right 3 characters, so it'll return co. In this case, it'll also return the space before co, so just be aware of that. Let's look at the mid function. The mid function will return us a list of characters between the start number and then the end number and the number of characters. So we want to start in cell B301, and we want to start at number 7, which will be right after Tommy, and we want to go all the way to number 10, right? So we want to go all the way to number 10. So that's going to return the middle part of this string. It's going to give us the number of characters that we want. So we're going to start at number 7, and we're going to give us 10 characters. Now let's say we want to get the whole investments. We're going to do 11, and it'll give us investments. The same thing goes with the left function, except it'll start at the left. It'll start at the beginning, so it'll start at T, and we want to feed it 6 to get that Tommy out of there, so we could do 6. Now, if we want to do the find function, we can feed it a string that we want to find. So we want to find Tommy, and it will find Tommy within this this cell. Now we can also do the search function. The search function is not case sensitive. So in the find function, if I decide that I want to do Tommy with an O capitalized, it will not find Tommy. So we use the search function. Search function is a little bit more useful in this case. The next one that we want to do is the substitute function. So let's say I want to take co out of this string. I just wanted to say Tommy Investments. What we'll do is we'll feed it the string or the text that we want to substitute. We want to substitute out co, and we want to substitute with blank. But let's say we want to substitute with Tommy Investments Company. Click enter, and it'll replace that with that. Now, let's say we want to use the trim function. The trim function will take out any spaces outside of a cell. So let's say we're trying to do a VLOOKUP and it's not working for some reason. That reason will be because there's a lot of extra spaces here. So if we want to trim it down, we can trim it down so that it has no spaces. So if I just copy this and paste it as plain text, you'll see that it has no spaces while this cell has a lot of spaces, right? Cool, I'm gonna undo that. The next one is the text join function. So we can actually join a group of text. Let's say we want to join 3 rows of text into one cell. We can do that, and all you do is just text join. You put what you want them to be joined by. So let's say I want them to be joined by this ampersand sign, right? And then we're going to say true. We're going to ignore any empty cells. So let's say that the second one is empty. It will ignore that one, and then it will return a list of strings, right? So again, I'm going to change this to the ampersand just so you can see that change, and it will have that. If we want to add some spaces, all we got to do is add a space in front of this and a space after that, and boom, right? So again, text join, the delimiter that we want to have in between the texts. We want to ignore the empty ones, and we want this to be our array. So we want this to be our array where we want to get all the texts or the text that we want to join together. So that is an overview of string functions. Let's move on to an exercise that combines all of them together. Okay, guys, so let's say we have an exercise, right, where we have some data, and we want to break down these company names, and we want to take out, LLC, LP, INC, all these company the type of companies out of the company name, and we want to break it down to just the company name. Now we can either go through all these and try to find and replace, but there's a bunch of different strings. So this is a method that is proven to work that will provide us with this this cool breakdown of the text. And it's pretty useful when matching some data up that doesn't necessarily match with the strings. So what I would do here is I would start with all the strings that we want to take out. So these are the list of strings we want to take out, right? So what you want to start with is you want to start with the isNumber function, and it's basically just going to return an array of if it found it or if it didn't find it, right, in a specific cell. So in this case, we want to take out the LP out of the Sunflower Ventures LP, right? So we're looking at this this array of strings, and we want to return if it found one of these strings, and if it does, we want to remove it, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to start with this function here, isNumber, and we're going to search for it in this string, right? So what this is going to return is it's going to return false, true, false, false, because what it's doing is it's saying, okay, LP is not found in there, LP is found in there, so it's going to return true, INC is not found in there, and NOP is not found in there, right? So it's going to return this. Now you might be like, what the heck is going on? But let me bring it to light with a combination of some of the formulas that we did prior. So hold on. Just slowly look at this because it might get a little confusing, but I promise you this is a very useful tool to have in your belt when working with some complex data. So let's start. So what we want to do is we want to substitute, right? We want to substitute the string that we don't want in this column B, with nothing. We just want to have the Oceanic Holdings. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the text, right? We're going to take this text and we're going to put a comma. Now we want to replace the old text. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a text join here. We're going to do text join, and we're going to have the delimiter be a comma, because what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to get a true or false value in this case. So what we're going to do is we're going to check that out. So we're going to say true. We only wanted to have the true out of that array of strings down here. We're going to do comma, and we're going to write an if statement. So we're going to say if, and then again the isNumber just returns if it's a number, and then we're going to feed that into the text join. So we're going to say isNumber. We're going to do another search function, and we're going to search again with the strings that we want to replace. So we want to replace these strings, right? And we're going to lock this. That way we can do it for all of them. So we're going to do that, and we're going to start in this text. We're going to start to try to find LLC in this text box, right? So we're going to close this out, and we're going to say that's the logical test, right? We're going to find the trues. We're going to say if it's true, then we want to return, right? We want to return this. We want to return the values where it's true. I'll lock that up. And then if it's false, we just want to leave it out. And then we're going to close out this text join, and then we're going to, the new text, we're going to replace it with nothing, right? We want to replace it with nothing. Click enter. Wow, look at that. It took out the LLC. Now, this is useful if you don't know, if all of them are the same, then it's pretty easy. You just do a left function, right? And you can know that you need to take away the 3 characters. In this case, we want to get the length -3, and that will give us the string that we like. Actually, in this case, we're going to do -4, so we take away that space. So this is useful if they're all in the same string, right? But in the case that we're doing below, they're different, right? They're different. So this will work if they are different. And let's say we want to, let's say this is not LLC. Let's say this is something else, right? This is like POP, right? It's gonna not replace it because POP is not found in here. But let's say we want to expand this. So we want this to be POP, right? We also want to search for POP. So what we can do is we can just change this to include that extra string that we want to find, right? Boom. Pull this down, and that will be gone. All right, guys, that is the complex string functions that I wanted to show you. Very useful when needed. Let's look at the round functions really quickly. So let's say that we have this cost of goods sold per unit, and we want to get it up and rounded up to 50, right? So what we'll do is we'll just take the cell that we want to use and the number of digits we want to round it to. Let's say we want to round it to 2 decimal places. We can do that. But in this case, we want to round it up to the whole number. Now, let's say that we want a target customer per hour and we need to figure out, how many customers we need per hour. This won't work if you're doing something like a break-even analysis, because we know that 34 customers per hour is not going to do it and 34.3 customers per hour is not going to do it, so we have to round up. So what we use is the round up function, same thing as a round function. You're going to go to 0 digits in this case because we want to round to the whole number. That way we can cover our costs, right? Another one is round down. Let's say we found out the average age is 20.3, but we work for a liquor company, right? So if the average age in an area is 20.3 and we want to see if this area is worth doing, maybe not, because the average age isn't at least 21 or over. So in this case, we would like to round this down, because if you want to drink alcohol, you can't be 20.3 years old. You can't be 20.9 years old. You have to be 21. So you'll round this number down, and that is that. So that is that. Now, lastly, for the string functions, I'm going to jump back to the string functions. We're going to do concat. So concat is going to allow us to combine some text. So let's say management wants to do an analysis of our clients, money that we're managing, and which companies have the most assets under management. But they want to have this displayed as a text. They want to have this displayed as a text, right? So if we want to have a summary, I'm going to clear all these out. What we can do is we can use the concat function. So concat is just going to combine some strings together. So we're going to say we want the company, Oceanic Holdings. We want to separate it by a space. So we'll do a quotation mark, space, quotation mark. The next text is we want a corporation. So we want Oceanic Corp, right? And then let's say another string. And we can write has, right, space. Then we can write this, has, comma. The next string, that's how much AUM they have, comma. Assets under management. So it'll combine the strings together and it'll give us that. But that number is a little bit off, right? That doesn't seem like it's right. So we can use another function called the text function. So we'll feed the text function a text, and we're going to format it in the way that we want to format it. So in this case, we want to do quotation marks, 0, $, if we want it to be, or $0 if we want it to be money. But in this case, there's a lot of commas. So let's do comma, 0, 0, 0, and we'll get it as the text that we're expecting. Let's close this one out, press enter, and there we go. Oceanic Holdings Corp has 63 billion, blah, 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 assets under management. Let's pull this down so we get the whole table. And there we go. Now we got exactly what we needed. All right, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Really quickly, 3 functions just to get you guys accumulated and accustomed to these functions: today, now, and date. The date function is date, and then you just feed it the date, but you could also just write the date and format it as a date. But there might be some applications in where this is helpful. So we'll do the date, 2021, the month will be 12, the day would be 3, it'll be the 3rd of December of 2021. The today function, the now function, you just write now. You don't have to feed it anything. And the today function, you just write today. And it'll give you today's date. That's all I got for you guys on this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys enjoyed the practice problems, and this will be the end to intermediate functions in Excel. We'll be moving on to pivot tables, charts, and more. And we'll move on to finally the cool tools in Excel, so for stuff like data validation, conditional formatting, and beyond, like Power Query. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate all your guys' support on this endeavor and taking this Excel prep course. I'm cramming in 6+ years of experience in a couple short modules. So I hope you guys are liking it. Please let me know, or let us know, if there's anything we can do to help your learning journey in Excel. And I hope you guys enjoy the next set of videos.